Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, and we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that arrived in Riku box number 2. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to Riku Sanaxinaho, my Finnish beer mule living in Oulu in the northwest of the country. It's thanks to him that you guys are getting to enjoy a steady stream of Finnish beer reviews, and I'm sure we'll continue this for many years to come. But he's picked me out some really awesome stuff over the last little while. He seems to have his own little beer mule network going on in Finland, which is great for him and for me of course as well. But he's picked me out some cracking beers, and I always enjoy filming these Finnish reviews for you, so I hope that you guys watching over there are enjoying them as well. And yeah, Riku, massive thank you once again for making this review possible. For this review though, we are going to go to the opposite end of the country from Riku. We're going to go down to the southeast of Finland, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before. This is going to be review number 3 from these guys, if memory serves me correctly. It's also going to be the strongest and darkest beer that I've had from them so far, and it's also quite an unusual style as well. You don't see too many of these, and there's also no real set definition as to what this style of beer actually has to be. So quite curious to see how it turns out. Hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one, and fingers crossed it makes for a very interesting beer. So yeah, for this review then, we will go to Espoo, very close to Helsinki, the capital, and we're having a look at another beer from Salama Brewing Company. This one is simply called 100th Batch. It comes in at 11% ABV, and they're describing this one as a bourbon barrel-aged winter ale. So yeah, this I think should be really quite interesting. Winter ales can be a whole host of different things. Of course, it can vary from brewery to brewery, but I have been impressed with the 2 beers I had from these guys before, so I'm hoping this one is as good as those. Incidentally, the other 2 beers we had from this brewery, one of them was one of the iterations of Goes to Mars. I can't remember exactly what version that was, because there's been quite a few. And then the last review that we did was Pink Dozer, which was a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, double IPA, and that was a really nicely executed beer as well. Actually, the Pink Dozer series, or the Dozer series I should say, seems to be really highly regarded in Finland. So yeah, definitely nice to return to these guys and try something a little bit more kind of quirky and dark, if you like. So fingers crossed it's as good as the other ones, and I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. Let's get cracking with it then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done already from Salama Brewing Company, and I'm sure we'll add more to that list in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Finnish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I've still got a lot of Riku beers left. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Salama Brewing Company once again. So Salama Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Espoo in Finland, very close to Helsinki, and the company was founded back in 2019 by a group of friends. So the men behind this company are Christian Holmlund, Jaakko Ailio, Johannes Järvinen, and Ville Sarkoski. Christian is the CEO, and he has a background in running small and medium enterprises, while Jaakko is the brewer and Johannes takes care of the bureaucratic side of the brewery. Ville, on the other hand, acts as the arts director for the brewery, and he produces some pretty good stuff, I have to say. I like the Salama Brewing Company art. But the brewery is very close to the IKEA and the Jorvi Hospital, which is to the north of Espoo, and their brewing equipment came from China, and they've got a theoretical brewery capacity of around 130,000 litres per year, but they brewed around 50,000 litres in their first year. They recently opened up a tap room at the brewery, and Jaakko says that they're going to focus mainly on lighter styles of beer like pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs and sours and things like this, but they are starting to produce a few imperial stouts, and they're going to do some barrel aging as well. I think this is one of the first barrel aged beers that they've produced, if I'm remembering what Riku said correctly. I might not be, so correct me on that in the comment section below if I'm wrong there. But they are starting to do a little bit of barrel aging now as well, which should be quite interesting going forward, and I hope that I can try I hope that I can try an Imperial Stout from them at some stage. We will need to have a look at that later. But apparently the plan is to export around 70% of their output. Finland, of course, is about 4.8 million people, if I remember rightly. So yeah, they will be able to export quite a lot of their output, I'm sure. And as of March 2021, when I'm filming this particular review for you, these guys have produced around 85 different kinds of beer, which is quite impressive when you consider they've only been around for about 2 years or something. That's pretty good going, actually. A beer every 2 weeks or something like that. But the name of this brewery, Salama, translates into English as lightning, so it's literally the Lightning Brewing Company, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Salama Brewing Company for the moment. It's still a very new player in the Finnish beer scene, but they seem to be quite highly regarded and doing some really interesting stuff. So definitely cool to be able to review some of their beers for you here on the channel in such an early stage of their life. But yeah, I think that's all I can tell you. So if you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So I'll let you have a little look at the artwork quickly before we open it up. You can see the artwork on this one is a little bit... Oh, is that the right way around? There you go. So you can see the artwork on this one is a little bit kind of simpler compared to the other ones that we've had before. But you can see there is the Salama Brewing Company symbol, the lightning bolt and the cloud, which I think is awesome. Yeah, Ville really does some very, very nice art for these cans, actually. Looks pretty cool. And there you can see Salama Brewing Company. But yeah, 11% ABV. This one, as I said, the 100th batch bourbon barrel aged winter ale. It says, celebrating our 100th brewed batch in under 2 years of brewing, this bourbon barrel aged winter ale spiced with cinnamon is the perfect winter warmer for the diabolical Nordic nights. Yes, exactly. But yeah, 440 milliliter can. This one, I think we paid about I think I paid Rico about €7 or so for this one. That sounds roughly about right. He did send me a list with all the prices and things like that, but I forgot to look at that before we started the video. But yeah, about €7 for this one, I would guess. Remember, Finland is probably the most expensive country that uses the euro as its currency. Very high wages. And just labour costs and stuff like this, so you will pay a little bit more for Finnish beer, but the novelty of it is there's the novelty aspect there, and the quality of the Finnish beers is good, so I don't really care about that. But yeah, about €7, so that works out at roughly £6 sterling, and maybe about $8.50 American for those of you watching in different parts of the world. But for an 11% bourbon barrel aged big beer like this, that's not too bad. That's not too bad, actually, I would say. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm very curious to see what this one has in store for us, and it's full to the brim, so I just need to watch as I open this one. Yes, wow, it's sprayed a little bit over my desk, so I'll need to wipe that later on. But yeah, there we go. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Yeah, you get some cans like that where they're absolutely just full to the brim and then they explode a little bit from the pressure as you open them. But yeah, look at how kind of silky and thick that thing is. That looks really nice. Yeah, so as I said to you earlier, there's not really a definition as to what a winter ale actually has to be. It can be a whole host of different things. Some of them can be really spicy, some of them can be more like kind of stouty and stuff, some of them can be more kind of caramelly and bready and malty and things. So yeah, there's a general spectrum as to what these beers can be. It's a little bit like an old ale, to be honest with you. There's a whole host of different things that that they can be. But anyway, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely dark sort of ebony colour. If we shine the light through that, yeah, it's almost it's almost like a really very, very, very dark barley wine, this one. It's not quite as black as an imperial stout, I would say, but it's not far off it. It's not really far off it at all. So yeah, lovely dark sort of ebony rosewoody kind of colour. If you shine the light through it, it's got a nice little bit of a kind of Coca-Cola coloured edge to it, which I think is really nice. But yeah, there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the surface there, and you can see there's absolutely no head on this one. Absolutely nothing in terms of head on this beer. So yeah, you can tell this one, I think this has undergone an incredibly long boil, of course. Because remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. Two, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer out of it. And then barrel aging and adjuncts can also play a role in that as well. So yeah, bear that in mind. So barrel aging, I think, will play a little role in this one, but I think this beer probably has, by the looks of it, undergone a very long boil, and there will be some very dark malts in there too. So yeah, a few factors at play in this one. So yeah, it certainly looks pretty nice, this one. But yeah, this isn't out of the realms of possibility for a winter ale. Of course, you will find you will find a few beers that are, you might find a few that are even darker than this. You probably will find a few winter ales that are a bit lighter than it. So nothing untoward about the appearance of this beer. So yeah, not much more we can say about the appearance for this one. Let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on. Ooh, that does smell nice, actually. It's interesting. Straight away with this one, you smell the cinnamon straight away, but then you also smell the big, smooth bourbon oak backbone to this beer. It smells amazing. It really smells very, very nice, that. So I'm going to say straight away, thumbs up to Salama Brewing Company for this one. This is a really nice smelling beer. Yeah, where do we go with this one then? So yeah, like I say, the backbone of this beer has that lovely, smooth, oaky kind of quality to it, which I really like that. I always love the aromas that you get out of barrel aging. I think are always quite special, actually. And I mean, the main difference, of course, between the American bourbon whiskies and the Scotch whiskies, I think the Scotch whiskies tend to be a little bit more grainy, whereas, as is the case with many things from America, the American bourbon is a little bit sweeter and more kind of sugary, if you like. So yeah, you can really smell that lovely, smooth, oaky backbone to this beer. There's a little bit of vanilla coming out of it, one or two little nutty aromas as well, and then you get that sort of Werther's Original butter candy type thing. I don't know if the Finns actually get Werther's Original over there. I've only been through the airports in Finland, so I'm trying to remember. I don't think they do, but yeah, you get that lovely kind of butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, just kind of sitting on top of the woody notes as well. But that's the backbone of the beer: smooth, oaky woodiness, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of nuttiness, and then a little bit of that kind of a little bit of that sort of bourbon, that kind of brown, that butter candy, brown sugary sort of thing. But yeah, it smells really nice. On top of that, there is a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty element to it. It's almost like a little bit like a kind of rye bread crust. It's not well fired or anything. It actually comes across as a straight up wholemeally brown bready kind of thing. But yeah, you've got a little bit of you definitely have a little bit of yeah, you've definitely got a little bit of just that nice kind of smooth brown bready character in there, and it smells like the cinnamon is kind of infused into that sort of bready type thing that comes out of the beer. So that's definitely an interesting point to make out of this one. It smells, you can smell the booze in this as well, actually. It starts to develop a little bit more of a kind of boozy Christmas pudding cakey sort of thing as well, the more that you smell of it. So that's definitely an interesting point to make about this brewery too, for sure. But yeah, I think it goes together really nicely in that sense. The more that you smell of this beer too, the more brown sugar you start to get out of it. You can smell a really dark, oily treacle molasses kind of note. You can smell a little bit of a kind of toasty caramel and a sweeter caramel in there as well. So there's quite a bit of brown sugar depth to this beer, I have to say. And it does take this beer a little bit of time to kind of show its colours, if you like. It does take a bit of time for the aroma to evolve, in honesty. So you need to take a little bit of time with this one and see what it's all about. But yeah, lovely treacly brown sugars in there, a bit of a sweeter caramel, and a nice little bit of a sort of biscuity element as well. So I really like how all of that goes together in this one. The aroma on the malty and woody side of things goes together really nicely for me. It gets a big thumbs up. So yeah, I certainly like how this one goes together. Yeah, we can't really say much more about the malty side of things. On the hoppy side of things then, let's have a little look at that. I mean, there's not too much to report on the hoppy side of things. You do get a little bit of a kind of earthy character out of it. There's a little bit of that there, a wee touch of herbal note, and some kind of there's definitely a wee bit of a green component in there as well, so a little touch of grassiness and a wee bit of floral character, so it all goes together really nicely. So yeah, the hoppy side of this beer is quite nice. I mean, the thing is, when this is barrel aged, and I've had it sitting for maybe, I think it came in, I think Riku sent me this one about 2 months ago or something like that. You know, a bit of the hoppy character is going to drop out of this actually, so that's, you know, not surprising. But you still get some of the remnants of the hoppy characters in this beer. I'm not sure how long Riku had this one before he sent me it. He probably got it in like November or something, I would think, because he messaged me to ask me if I wanted one of these. But yeah, so this beer has got a few months in the can on it, so the hops will gradually drop out as you kind of store it a little bit, but it still comes across nicely. I think the green component mixes well with the sort of cakey malty side of things as well. But on the fruity side of the beer, for me, it comes across nicely. As I said, you've got that sort of cakey element to it, and you get a bit of a kind of pruny, datey sort of thing in there, but there is a good little bit of a more oily plum. There's a little bit of a sharper kind of raisiny element to it, and then you've also got a little bit of a kind of figgy quality to this beer as well. So yeah, some raisin sharpness, a bit of plum, those dried fruits in there as well, and there's also a wee bit of a kind of blackberry type vibe coming out of this beer too. So I really like how this how the aroma of this one goes together. I'm not sure what to expect exactly of this in the flavour, but we'll see how it translates. So yeah, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. I think this one's going to be quite an interesting one, so yeah, let's just go for it. So this one is the 100th batch, an 11% bourbon barrel aged winter ale from Salama Brewing Company in Espoo in Finland. Thank you again to Riku for making this review possible. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kippis. Oh yeah, that's definitely like it is just basically like a big, slightly spicy barley wine, this beer. Yeah, that is, it's really barley wine like, this one, I think. Yeah, spicy barley wine. I think that's how I'm going to kind of define this one, if you like. This is just like a sort of spicy barley wine. I'm going to say straight away though, this is pretty damn solid, and it's cool to see. I always like it when you have a brewery that you know. I mean, I've had a sour from these guys, I've had an IPA from them, they've both been good. It's nice to see that they can do the dark side of the things as well. But I'm going to enjoy sipping away on this beer, taking a break from a bit of Swedish study to review this one. So this will be my sipper for my vocabulary study, to kind of get me through. I hate studying vocabulary, it takes so long. But yeah, check that it's there for my OCD, and there we are. But yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this is a lovely, lovely beer. So let's try and break down the flavour a little bit. But first impressions. First impression is, like I said, it's basically like a slightly spicy barley wine, this one. It comes, you know, the flavour in this one, it actually comes out fairly quickly. It's very sort of cakey and brown sugary, with a little bit of breadiness and things in there, and you get a good little bit of fruity character to it as well. So it's a very nice winter ale actually. As I said, there's not really a kind of strict definition as to what a winter ale has to be, but yeah, this one certainly gives you that sort of winter warmer type vibe to it. Often a winter warmer is just a slightly spiced beer. So yeah, I like how I certainly do like how this one goes about its business. So yeah, thumbs up to Salama Brewing Company, as I said. But let's try and break this beer down a little bit and describe it for you. So yeah, straight away then, across the middle of your palate, we're talking about middle third of your palate now, you can feel that nice, smooth, oaky, woody character there. That just blankets the middle of the tongue, and that is your backbone. Sitting on top of the wood, you do get a little bit of that. You could feel that sort of brown sugary bourbon sort of quality coming out of the beer. So I really like how that side of things goes together. So it's I mean, the thing is, it develops that woodiness. You can feel the spiciness coming out a little bit on top of that, so we'll come back to it in a second, but you can definitely feel the slight sweetness of the bourbon sitting there. So yeah, smooth oaky backbone, the sort of bourbony sugar sitting on top of that. You can feel a wee bit of a kind of, towards the front half of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of vanilla and a little bit of nuttiness coming out of it, which is great. But then sitting on top of that, you've got a very nice you've got a very nice sort of brown bready quality that comes out on top of that. It's, as I say, it's a little bit like a kind of rye bread crusty quality. It's got a good bit of grainyness to it, but particularly towards the back half of that middle third of your palate, that's where you get the cinnamon coming out of this one. And the cinnamon actually does pack a fair kind of punch to it, which is interesting. Although as you move further forward onto the front half of the palate, it sort of sweetens up a little bit. It reminds me a little bit of kanelbuller, the cinnamon buns actually, on the front half of that middle third of your tongue. It really is a little bit like kanelbuller on the front half of the middle third of the tongue, but yeah, at the back of that middle third of your tongue, it's definitely got a little bit more kind of darkness and sort of spiciness to it, which is interesting. It's a little bit stronger there. But yeah, the kind of fruity, the sort of sweetness that you get out of this beer develops. This beer develops a little bit, and you get a little bit more dryness out of it, and it develops on that back half of that middle third of your palate. It really develops a little bit of a cakiness. You really get a little bit of a kind of cakey type quality out of this one for sure, and it does get darker and more kind of spicy and bitter the further you go into the aftertaste, which is quite interesting. But then in the centre of the palate, it starts to develop a wee bit of a kind of sweetness, which is quite interesting too. So yeah, in the very centre of your palate, you do get a little bit of sweetness starting to come out of the beer, and the cakiness. It is really like a cinnamon bun. It really, the middle of the palate is very much like a kind of cinnamon bun in this beer, kanelbuller. I don't know what the Finns call them actually. But yeah, you can feel in the middle of your palate there's a sort of bready, bunny sort of base to this one. On top of that, you can feel there is a kind of strong treacle molasses kind of element there. And then, pardon me, as you move further out from that, the brown sugars start to become a little bit more toasted. But in the very centre of your palate, you do start to get a little bit more of a kind of sweeter caramel out of this one. But the cinnamon is kind of infused into that, so it's a sort of cinnamon caramelly kind of mix, which is really interesting. It really is just like cinnamon buns, this beer. It's like a barley wine with cinnamon buns added into it. So yeah, it's interesting how that goes together, definitely. So yeah, yeah, the malty side of this beer, the middle third of your palate, is really interesting. As you progress further into the aftertaste, you still get a little bit of the darkness, sort of darker, more spicy elements lingering there, but I do find this beer gets kind of slightly sweeter, and the cinnamon sort of sweetens up and mellows out a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, it is kind of like a barley wine, this one, but you've got that smooth woody bourbony base, a little bit of nutty and vanilla quality there, then you've got that whole cinnamon bun sort of thing sitting on top of it. It's really interesting how this beer goes about its business, definitely. Yeah, I think that kind of covers the middle third of the palate quite well in this beer, to be honest with you. But yeah, on the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, then again you can feel there's a bit of a sort of cakey element builds up there, and there's a wee bit of a toasty, grainy element. On the back third of your palate, it's distinctly more kind of grainy and slightly toasty, as I say, but on top of that you get the kind of yeasty notes just kind of sitting and building up. You can feel the flavour is a little bit taller. You can feel that the flavour is a little bit kind of taller on the the flavour's a little bit taller on the back third of your palate, and that's when you get these airy yeasty things. So if you start from the back of the palate and move your way forward, the flavour is like this, and then as you move forward it gradually kind of tails off on the top, and then it condenses down quite quickly as you move into the the kind of middle third of your palate. So yeah, just bear that in mind with this one. Bear that in mind, absolutely. So the flavour is a little bit more dense in the middle third of your palate, and it's a little bit more kind of light and airy in the back third of things. But yeah, let's focus on the hoppy and fruity side of the beer then. I think we've covered the malty, yeasty, barrel aging side of this beer quite extensively now. Nearly swallowed a bit of that the wrong way there, so excuse the face. Yeah, getting a bit of tears in my eyes now. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate again, you've definitely got a little bit of an earthy kind of thing coming out of the beer, and as you move further forward, the earthiness does actually have a bit of pungency to it. It does have a little bit of, you know, kick to it, but then as you move further forward from that, it's a little bit sort of herbal, as you say, and then as you reach kind of further forward, it goes towards the front corners of the palate actually, and it gives you a really nice floral aromatic kind of thing. So that the floral aromaticity is actually a little bit more kind of prominent, if you like, in the flavour than it was in the aroma, to be honest with you. And you do get a nice little bit of grassiness around the front curve of your tongue, and it's a little bit fresher almost. The grassiness is almost a little bit zestier and fresher compared to what the aroma might have you believe. But on that border region between front and middle third of your palate, again you've got that little bit of cakiness in there, that sort of boozy, spicy, cakey kind of sponge thing, and a bit of a toasty, grainy element sitting on top of that as well. But yeah, I certainly like how that side of things goes about its business. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, as I always say, that front third of your palate's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you get all those cakey, spongy sort of things, but you can definitely feel there is a wee bit of a datey, pruny, kind of dried fruit sort of thing. But yeah, there is a wee bit of a kind of raisiny sharpness to it and a bit of plum, but that's not overly prominent, I think. So yeah, when you've got the liquid on your tongue, you will get a bit of a raisiny, plummy kind of note, and you've got all the dates and prunes and stuff underneath. There is an element of phenol to this one as well, that sort of medicinally cough syrupy kind of thing in this beer as well. You do get a little bit of that, particularly on the back half of that front third of your palate there, but as you move further forward, it does develop a little bit of a kind of figgy sort of thing. The base underneath these fruits, by the way, is a sort of spongy, cakey kind of vibe as well, I should point out. But yeah, you do get a little bit of a figgy element, and as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, there's a wee bit of blackcurrant in there, but then you get a really nice oily blackberry kind of thing coming out of this beer the further you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, there's a whole host of things going on in this one, but I think, you know, overall it really does strike me as just being like a sort of spicy, bready barley wine, this one, to be honest with you. I think that's probably the best descriptor of it. As I said, winter ale is a bit of a broad spectrum, if you like, but yeah, a sort of spicy, cinnamony leaning barley wine, I think, is where this beer is roughly. I think that summarises it quite well. But it's a nice beer, this one. It is certainly quirky and quite different compared to the other Salama ones that I've had before, but I like it. I think it's quite interesting for sure. So I'm glad that I told Riku to get me one of these, or I took up his offer, I should say. But yeah, this has been an interesting one to review. So let's examine the mouthfeel quickly to round off the review. Yeah, it's definitely kind of, it's top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. So the carbonation is very smooth in this one. This beer has a real slickness to it actually, which is very, very interesting. It really has it's got a nice big sort of slickness to it, which I really, really enjoy. But yeah, the flavour profile of this beer, I think, goes together really well, as I say. But yeah, it's very slick, kind of top end and mid-bodied, smooth carbonation. I think that's that. In terms of bitterness, I think this beer has to maybe be around 40 or 50 IBUs or something like that. Does it say on the can? No, it doesn't. But yeah, about 40. I would say this is probably about 40 or 50 IBUs. Some of the bitterness, it's a bit hard to distinguish between bitterness and spice, to be honest with you, so it might not be 40 IBUs. That's the difficult thing. with beers that have spices in them like this one, but there's a good degree of sweetness to this one. The malt base, it's smooth and woody underneath, there's a good bit of breadiness and cakiness in there, then you've got a bit of spiciness and sweetness sitting on top of it, so the malt base is very, very layered for me. There's a good little bit of a juicy, slightly oily, fruity character, and just a little bit of hoppy bitterness. So I think you've got a bit of everything going on in this one, but it's a very nice beer, good levels of complexity which you would expect from an 11%er, and it has been really nice to try something from the dark end of the spectrum from Salama. So yeah, really happy with this one. So yeah, I guess we can leave it at that for this review. So once again, thank you to you guys for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Salama Brewing Company as well. I'm sure we'll return to these guys at some point soon. Probably not for a little while though, until Riku box number 3. But yeah, it's been really cool to review this one for you here on the channel, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my take on it. Thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out my other Finnish reviews, let me know some other Finnish breweries that I should be having a look at, and I will catch you guys on the channel very, very soon. Slanja, skål, cheers. This one was the 100th batch, an 11% bourbon barrel aged winter warmer from Salama Brewing Company in Espoo in southern Finland. Slanja, skål, cheers, kipis and kiitos.